Section 2 of Joseph in the Snow and the Clockmaker, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Rita Boutros. Joseph in the Snow and the Clockmaker, Volume 1, by Berthold Auerbach. Chapter 2. A Duet Interrupted and Resumed. At the very same hour that the child in the attic woke up and was so restless, 2 candles and a lamp were burning in the sitting-room of the parsonage, and 3 people were seated comfortably at a round table. These were the clergyman, his wife, and her brother, a young farmer. The room was pleasantly warm, and in the pauses of the conversation the hissing of some apples roasting on the stove was heard, and the kettle on the top of the stove put in its word too, as if it wished to say that it had good material ready for a glass of hot punch. The worthy pastor, who seldom smoked, nevertheless possessed the talent of enjoying his pipe with any guest who arrived. This did not, however, make him neglect his snuff-box, and whenever he took a pinch himself, he offered one to his brother-in-law, who invariably refused it politely. The pastor gazed with evident satisfaction at his brother-in-law, and his wife occasionally looked up from her work, a gift to her husband for the Christmas of the ensuing day, and glanced tenderly at her brother. "A famous idea of yours," repeated the pastor, while his delicate face, his well-formed lips, bright blue eyes, and lofty intellectual forehead assumed an expression of even greater benevolence than usual. "A famous idea indeed, to get leave of absence to spend the holidays with us. But," added he, smiling and glancing at the gun leaning against the wall in a corner, "your firearms will not profit you much here, unless, indeed, you have the good fortune to hit the wolf, who has been lately seen prowling about in the wood." "I have neither come to visit you solely from the wish to see you, nor with the idea of sport," answered the young farmer in a deep and manly voice. "My chief motive is to persuade you, my dear brother-in-law, to withdraw your application for the pastorate in the Odenwald, and to delay moving until there is a vacant cure, either near the capital or in it. My uncle Zettler, who is now consistorial president, has promised to secure the first vacant charge for you." "Impossible! Both Lena and I should certainly have liked to be in the vicinity of our parents, and I have often an eager thirst for good music, but I am a bad hand at the new orthodoxy of the day, and the eager discussions as to whether a sermon is according to strict church principles. Among my fellow workers in the church there is an incessant feverish anxiety for the souls of their mutual parishioners, inducing them to exchange religious exhortations, which appear to me a very vainglorious system. It is with that, like education. The less teaching parents bestow on their children, the more incessantly they talk on the subject. Live a good life and a pious one, and you can train up both your children and your parishioners, without possessing much learning, and without such endless wear and tear of care and anxiety. I know that I teach a pure faith so far as my ability goes, and, moreover, I am averse to all innovations. We must grow old along with those on whom we wish to impress our doctrines. In a well-organized government a man remains in the same situation, but is gradually promoted in his office. I only applied for the vacant cure in the Odenwald because I feel that I am becoming too old for the dissensions and strife which prevail here, and also because I have not the power to prevent a piece of cruelty at which my heart revolts. But now let us sing." He rose, went to the piano, and began the symphony of his favorite melody. And his wife and her young brother sang, with well-taught voices, the duet from Titus, "Joy and sorrow let us share." The two voices, blending harmoniously in this impressive melody, were like friendly hands clasped or a cordial embrace. While they were singing, a sound like the cracking of a whip seemed to ascend from the road before the house, but they did not pay much attention to it, mutually agreeing that it must be a delusion on their part. Now, however, that the song was at an end, the sound of a carriage and the loud cracking of a whip were distinctly heard. The pastor's wife opened the window, and, putting out her head into the dark night air, called out, "Is anyone there?" "Yes, indeed," answered a gruff voice. She closed the window quickly, for a current of biting, icy air rushed in, and made the singer's cheeks all in a glow. Her brother wished to look out also to see who it was, but his anxious sister held him back, as he was so heated by singing. She sent the maid down, and in the meantime bewailed the possibility of her husband being, perhaps, obliged to go out on such a night. The maid quickly returned, saying that a sledge had come from Rotman's godless old wife, who desired that the clergyman should come to her immediately. "Is Adam here, or a servant?" asked the pastor. "A servant." "Tell him to come in, and to take something warm till I am ready." His wife implored him not to expose his life to danger for the sake of such a wicked old dragon. Even by daylight it was dangerous at this time of year to drive to Rotman's house, and how much worse by night. "If a doctor must go to attend his patient in spite of wind and weather, how much more am I bound to do so," answered the pastor. The servant came into the room, and the pastor gave him a glass of punch, saying, "Is your mistress dangerously ill?" "No, not so bad exactly. At least she can still scold and curse bravely." The pastor's wife entreated him afresh, at least to wait till it was daylight, saying she would take the responsibility on herself if the formidable Rotmanin left the world without spiritual aid. But she seemed well aware that her persuasions would be quite unavailing, for while eagerly entreating him to remain, she was pouring some kirsch into a straw flask, and having fetched a large sheepskin cloak, she placed the flask in one of its pockets. The young farmer wished to go with his brother-in-law, but he declined, saying, as he went out, "Pray stay at home, and go to bed early. If you were to go with me, you would probably become hoarse, and I hope we shall sing a great deal together while the holidays last. That beautiful melody of Mozart's will accompany me on the way." The brother and sister, however, went together to the front of the house, where the pastor got into the sledge, his wife wrapping his feet closely in a large woolen rug, and saying reproachfully to the driver, "Why did you not bring a carriage instead of a sledge?" "Because the snow is quite deep at our house." "That is just like you all up there. You never think of how things are elsewhere, or whether the jolting of these frozen and rough roads may not break people's limbs. Drive slow as far as Harzenik. Be very careful, Otto. Pray get out and walk up the hill at Otterswang. But perhaps you had better sit still, for you might catch cold. May Heaven protect you." "Good night," said her husband, and his voice sounded quite hollow from under all his mufflings. The horses trotted off with the sledge, which was heard jolting and rumbling all along the village. The brother and sister then went back into the house. "I can't tell you how much good it does me to see and to hear your husband again," said the young man to his sister when they were once more in the sitting-room. "It seems to me that, as he becomes older, his pure and pious nature becomes more developed. Or does this proceed from my being now better able to appreciate him?" His sister smiled and said, "You are certainly sincerely attached to my husband, but you cannot fully know his pure soul and pious heart. People may say he is not sufficiently observant of church forms and ceremonies, but he is a church in himself. Piety prevails through his example. He needs do no more than simply live here, to exercise a beneficial influence. His gentle disposition, his untiring love, and strict integrity, cause all those who witness his daily life to become good and pious. And his style of preaching is just the same. His soul is in every phrase, every word is sound grain. He is well treated by all, and never meets with rudeness or incivility. The painter Schwartzmann, near this, who once stayed a week with us, and saw the respectful behavior of the rude peasantry towards him, said a good thing on the subject. Our pastor seems to prevail on every man to think in pure German in his presence, and not in patois. Formerly it used to distress me very much to think that such a man was destined to pass his life in this obscure place, among a set of illiterate peasants. But I have since that time learned that the highest cultivation of intellect, which is after all as simple as the Bible itself, is here in its right and fitting place. It would not be easy to say which was the greatest, the enthusiasm with which the sister spoke, or that of the brother in listening to her. So difficult is it to determine whether a good heart rejoices most in contemplating perfect felicity, or in possessing it. There is a kind of happiness attainable, not by one only, but by all who are capable of enjoying it, and that is the appreciation and love of a pure and pious heart. I know where he is now, continued the sister, fixing her eyes as if on some distant object. He has passed the great elm, and by this time they are driving on to Harzneck, where there is always a bitter blast. Wrap yourself well up. I believe you will convert that fierce, hard woman at last. I do believe you will, for what is there you cannot do. And I believe you will yet marry Adam to Martina, and then we shall remain happily where we are. The brother scarcely liked to interrupt his sister's reverie, but at last he asked, "Who is the fierce Rotmannen, and who are Adam and Martina?" "Sit down here beside me, and I will tell you. I could not sleep if I were to go to bed till I know that Otto is under shelter." End of Section 2.